So the Hurt Business broke up on Monday Night Raw this past week, and we have some further details on WWE's future plan or lack of it for the Hurt Business going forward. Now, as I mentioned, the Hurt Business imploded from within on Monday Night Raw this week. The dominant faction is now seemingly broken in half after Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin failed to take care of Drew McIntyre the previous week. MVP and Bobby Lashley had decided to cut them off. It is now being reported that with the faction finished, the future for Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin looks increasingly bleak in WWE. Now, of course, the Hurt Business is one of the most powerful factions in recent Raw history. MVP led Bobby Lashley, Cedric Alexander, and Shelton Benjamin to multiple victories, and the faction always seemed to carry gold. Lashley won the US Championship and the WWE Championship while being part of the stable, while Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin had a long reign as the Raw Tag Team Champions. But Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter has stated there is likely no long-term reason for the split. He said that the follow-up feud would later just be Bobby Lashley squashing Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin into obscurity on the red brand. He said, quote, Benjamin and Alexander are also likely to be the latest victims of WWE's breaking up people just to do so, and without doing so for a feud, since Lashley is just blowing off in one match and they're likely to be heading to be dead. Corbin showed up on Raw to help Lashley. The report also stated it usually makes sense to split up a faction like the Hurt Business if there's a chance of doing something new or if one of the members is leaving. However, in this case, there will appear to be no feud between Benjamin and Alexander against Lashley and MVP. He said, quote, but the breakup feud will likely be Lashley squashing both Benjamin and Alexander on Raw and then fading into the abyss like the Retribution guys. There was also some discussion about King Corbin possibly being a member of the Hurt Business, but MVP has stated on multiple occasions that this isn't the case, that King Corbin is not a member of the Hurt Business, it's just Bobby Lashley and MVP. So obviously there's been lots of discussion, hasn't there? There's been a lot of discussion about the breaking up of the Hurt Business, the splitting of the Hurt Business on Raw this week and why it was a bad move. Obviously, I agree. I agree with everyone that I think universally, apart from those that are writing the show for WWE, I think pretty much everyone said it was a bad move to split up the Hurt Business and no one wanted to see it. There is not a lot of good on Raw to watch. And again, I always say that I don't think necessarily it's the fault of the performers. I think it's the fault of the higher-ups. The Bucks always stopped with the higher-ups, the officials, and ultimately Vince McMahon. I think the reason for Raw being so difficult to watch is obviously the writing, the creative team, and the format of the show. That show still being 3 hours, nearly 10 years later. Yes, we have nearly sat through 10 years of being a 3-hour show. Monday Night Raw turned into a 3-hour show in 2012, and we have nearly sat through 10 years of it, which is incredible. To be honest, you almost have to credit WWE. You really do. You almost have to credit WWE and the USA Network for being so steadfast in keeping Raw as a 3-hour show that they've done it for nearly 10 years. That is incredible. That is incredible that they have, I don't know, that deluded, that nonsensical, that dumb, I mean, whatever you want to use to describe it, that they have allowed this to carry on for 10 years. That concerns me because they'll do it for another 10. They really will. As long as USA Network is willing to put up that dough and pay WWE for that 3rd hour, they'll continue to have Raw as a 3-hour show. Now, obviously, that being 3 hours, if it turned to a 2-hour show tomorrow like that wouldn't fix the problems. There is still a lot of problems with Raw. Being 3 hours is one of them, but as I mentioned, the writing, the storylines, all of that kind of stuff doesn't happen. It all, meshes together to give what we saw on Monday, which was a really bad show. I mean, we've seen some bad shows for Raw, and certainly they've reflected in the ratings, but usually around the time of WrestleMania, you start to see some good stuff, and the good stuff starts to outweigh the bad stuff. But man, Monday's Raw, phew, that was a show. That was a show that was tough to watch. That was a show that just, as you're watching it, you're going, that don't make a lot of sense, or that's just bad. And again, there isn't a lot of good. My long-winded point there is that there is not a lot of good when it comes to watching Raw, and you have to kind of pick your moments of stuff that's good and expect some stuff to be bad. What has been good in recent months is the Hurt Business, and you would think that there is still so much they could do with the Hurt Business. The Hurt Business was set up in 2020, not even early 2020, the latter half of 2020, and they haven't even given it a year. You think about factions such as Evolution, DX, The Authority, all those big factions, and some of them, like The Authority, are hardly good, but all of those big factions, they gave them time. You know, you could argue that maybe they waited too long to break them up, but they didn't break them up after 9 months of being together or something like that. Why? Because there was so much story to tell. You didn't have Evolution lasting a year and being broken up. Evolution was made after WrestleMania 19. That lasted all the way until WrestleMania 21. And arguably, if you want to talk about Ric Flair and Triple H's relationship exploding, that actually happened, later on that year. It was around sort of October-y time, that kind of time as well. So it was like 2.5 years that Evolution lasted for. Now, I'm not saying that the Hurt Business should have lasted 2.5 years. I'd have at the very least given it a year. At the very least given it a year. There's still so much story to tell. If Bobby Lashley loses the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, which I think will probably happen, then you can carry on telling the story about the Hurt Business trying to get it back, or the Hurt Business being frustrated that Bobby Lashley lost it, or it's just something you could have had. There is so much story there to tell, so much. There's still so much story they could tell of adding new members. I've been saying Naomi should be a member of the Hurt Business since since the Hurt Business was a thing last year. I mean, I really have. So there's still so much story they could have told, and I just don't understand the necessity to split people up because that's the quick way of making good television. And that's what WWE does. This is what my criticism when I've talked about WWE and tag team wrestling. This is why I always say if you're a big tag team, I don't understand why you would be in WWE. WWE's perception of tag team wrestling is that it's two people taking the spot of one person. That's too expensive. WWE doesn't care about factions. They don't care about tag teams. The only reason you're put together as a tag team or as a faction is because WWE can't think of anything for you to do in a singles role, so they go, I'll put them together as a tag team, or put them together as a faction. And then it works, and then they go, right, split them up. That's what WWE does. They split up tag teams. It doesn't matter if you're a female tag team or a male tag team, you will be split up at some point. The Street Profits, they've been a tag team for a while, but eventually it's going to be Montez Ford who's going to get that push. We saw it with Heavy Machinery. We've seen it throughout the years of WWE. That's what they do, and it's what they do with factions. The issue is to make a tag team or a faction splitting up feel effective. You need to give that faction or that tag team time to actually have the audience be emotionally invested in them. So when they do split up, it means something. It's like the Shield. The Shield, right? How long did it take them to split up? They debuted in late 2012 and they split up by 2014. Even then, they gave him about 18 months, 2 years. And even then, there was discussions of, was that the right time? They probably could have carried on going for a little bit longer. Even Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Roman Reigns, they all said, actually, we felt that we could have done at least 6 months, maybe a year longer. And it's the same with the Hurt Business. It's way too premature. It's way too premature. But WWE, considering the size of the creative team that they have, considering the size of the writing team that they have, they run out of ideas like that. And they go, oh, let's split them up because they need something for that show. Week-to-week storytelling, and they run out of stuff after 5 seconds. Where's the creative? Where's the creative from the creative team? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't think Dave Meltzer knows. I think that's important to state here. I don't think Dave Meltzer knows that what the plans are or aren't. You would just say historically, after watching WWE for several years, you know that they probably don't have anything planned for Cedric Alexander or Shelton Benjamin. This was just a method of trying to get King Corbin involved in the storyline. This was just a method of trying to get Bobby Lashley continually over as this big dominant champion on the road to WrestleMania to actually have some stakes in his match against Drew McIntyre at the show. That's why. And I think the involvement of King Corbin, no one asked for that. No one asked for that. And they're referencing a storyline from 2018, a faction, which was Lashley, Corbin, and McIntyre, that no one cared about at the time. It's one thing to bring back someone or involve someone that was involved with a faction that everyone cares about, and they go, oh, I used to really like that faction, or I really like that storyline. That means something. They're referencing a storyline that barely anyone remembers because no one cared about it. Monday Night Raw in 2018 was awful. It was terrible, especially towards the end. And it was the same with 2019. It was rubbish. You know, they had the record loads. It was so bad, that's why you had Vince McMahon, especially in 2018. It was so bad, that's why you had Vince McMahon and Triple H and Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon come out and say to the audience, we've been doing a bad job. It was because of storylines like Corbin, McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, and having Bobby Lashley flex his glutes on television. And yet they're referencing like that, like, oh, that was the good old days. You remember that storyline? We're involving it for a WrestleMania storyline now. That is insanity. That is insanity. Because you thought that was bad. Get ready for this. It's stupid. It's stupid. And you broke up one of the most promising factions to facilitate that. You broke up a promising faction to reference a faction that nobody cared about or remembered. So I don't understand the logic there. But that's the problem, I guess, with WWE television at the moment, is that there isn't a lot of logic. Especially going into this WrestleMania, there's not a lot of logic. And I was thinking this the other day, that this WrestleMania really does remind me of WrestleMania 31, in the sense that the build to WrestleMania 31 was atrocious. I mean, so bad. Going into that show, nobody had high hopes. Nobody had high hopes. The Roman Reigns stuff was just horribly botched, and you feel bad for Roman Reigns because of how badly they booked him and scripted him. And you had, obviously, Sting, Triple H. That was exciting, but then that just became WWE versus WCW and not initially what you thought it was of this vigilante against the Authority. I think that was the better storyline, but they didn't go with that. You had The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. The problem was that The Undertaker wasn't involved on television at the time. You had Cena, Rusev. All of these matches were good. Don't get me wrong, all of these matches were very good on the day, and WrestleMania 31 is actually one of the better WrestleManias in recent history. It was really good. Really good. Obviously, you had the heist of the century, the Seth Rollins ending, all of that kind of stuff. But the build-up to it was so bad, just so bad. And I feel like this WrestleMania is the same. I think if you look at the card's actually pretty good. The matches on there are going to be pretty good. And if you're looking for match quality and an enjoyable show, I think it's going to be like that. Just the build of how they're getting to that destination, WWE, it's been tough to watch. It's been really tough to watch. And it dampens the excitement for the show. It really does. So I don't know why they decided to split up the Hurt Business. I don't know if they've got any real plans for that. We'll have to wait and see. Now, what I did also want to talk about, considering that SmackDown is tonight, is Logan Paul. Because Logan Paul has seemingly confirmed he will be at WrestleMania. We know he's going to be on SmackDown tonight. But Logan Paul is indeed headed to the grandest stage of them all. As I mentioned, WrestleMania will finally have fans in attendance after almost a year. And many people are rushing to get their tickets. One person whose ticket has all been confirmed is YouTube star Logan Paul. Paul recently confirmed that he will be in attendance for WrestleMania 37 on his podcast Impulsive. While discussing his busy April schedule, Paul revealed that he will be present at WrestleMania 37. The boxer slash YouTube star has been involved in the last few weeks with WWE, specifically former Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn. He will be on SmackDown tonight. The two have been going back and forth on Twitter discussing Sami Zayn's upcoming documentary. Sami Zayn has in fact shared some exclusive content with Logan Paul, requesting the YouTuber to review it. Upon finishing his analysis, Paul came to the conclusion there is indeed a WWE conspiracy against Sami Zayn. The former Intercontinental Champion plans on having the world premiere for the trailer of his documentary on this week's episode. Was it the trailer? I thought it was the actual event. I don't know. As Logan Paul is his special guest, perhaps there will be some interactions between him, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn that is scheduled for WrestleMania 37. So it's certainly going to be interesting. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter has kind of chimed in on this. He said, quotes, "In that one, Logan Paul is going to be involved in the match. I don't know if he's going to be a referee or what, but he's definitely going to be involved. The idea is that Bad Bunny is on the Saturday and Logan Paul is on the Sunday. They are your big celebrities." So I don't know what they're going to do. I really hope he's not going to be the referee. I think that would really take away from the match. One of the matches I'm really excited about is Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, because obviously the match is going to be superb, because they've got obviously a plethora of history. They're real life best friends, and it's great to see them having a singles match on a big stage like WrestleMania. I'm really excited for that, actually. So I hope he's not involved in terms of being a referee, because I think it would take away from a match, because they would have to... A good referee is so important. A good referee is you don't notice, but the counts have to be consistent and the enforcing of the rules. And I just think Logan Paul, obviously, I don't know how familiar he is with the product, but that could be troublesome. As far as being in the corner of Sami Zayn, I wrote an article about that for Sportskeeda. I don't think that'd be a bad thing at all. I think Logan Paul can be a tremendous asset to WWE, not just because of his popularity, not just because of how well known he is, but mainly I think he can be a massive asset because he's so polarizing. I mean, talk about a character that's perfect for WWE television. I mean, I know there's not going to be a crowd in attendance for week-to-week television, but talk about someone that can really get heel heat from a crowd. That's Logan Paul. Of course he can. People hate this guy. And if there's everyone, I mean, he's a WWE character in real life. So why couldn't Logan Paul be perfect for WrestleMania? Why couldn't he be perfect to be a manager or someone like that for Sami Zayn? And also as well, I sort of scoffed at the whole boxer thing, but this is a guy, he has a great amateur wrestling background. And I think if they got to a point of Logan Paul actually having a match for WWE, I think he could do a good job. And again, I've never had a problem with celebrities being involved in pro wrestling because from a business point of view, it always has made sense. It always has made sense and it always will make sense. So I don't have a problem with him being involved in WrestleMania. I just wouldn't want him to be the referee. We'll have to wait and see. And I guess we'll find out tonight on SmackDown more about that. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the Hurt Business splitting up and Logan Paul possibly being involved in WrestleMania? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, gut the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.